Welcome, welcome, welcome. Bienvenidos, everyone, to the 2024 Mid-Year Motivation for Climate Action. If this feels somewhat familiar, it's because in January we were kicking off for climate action. And here we are somehow already, 6 months later, into the midpoint of the year. So thank you so much again for being here. I know just how busy and demanding life can be in so many ways, and it always can take a lot to make it happen, to come together. So even being here tonight is an effort in helping solve the climate crisis and really building that world that's based on justice and equity. Somehow happens both slow and fast at the same time. It's a real mystery in and of itself. But tonight we're going to do our best to wrangle the moving parts of 2024 so far, really create some energy, hopefully, and some shared momentum with one another, and see how we can set ourselves out and to make the rest of 2024 a super impactful year, despite what all is on the plate for this year, right? There's a lot happening in 2024. So with that, giving you a quick shot here at the agenda. We'll kick off with some introductions from us presenters here, and we'd love to hear from you in the chat on that. And we'll start moving into that recap at those three layers there at the global level, the national level, and the local level here in the state. That will help us draw into what are the challenges that we're still facing. And I'm sure for a lot of what we're going to talk about, for those of you here, it won't be the first time you're hearing it. But hopefully from having an open and honest discussion about that, we can really move into what our shared strengths are as a group here, as a movement, more broadly across the world. Because that'll get us into talking about our goals to address the climate crisis and the work we do here, and how you all are and have been and will be a critical part of that, because it's not going to be just 350 Colorado staff that are going to make it happen. It's every single one of us. So we'll wrap us up and go forward into the night and the future, hopefully with some, again, shared inspiration and clarity. So let's kick off some quick introductions here. I'll pass it around as you see it. I can start us off. I'm Chelsea Alexander. I use she, her, pronouns. I am in Lakewood, Denver, also Ute, Cheyenne, Arapaho, and 48 other tribal nations on ceded lands, considered Colorado. And I work as the movement building and volunteer director. I have for about 2.5 years with 350 Colorado, and it's been a joy and an honor in so many ways. And for anyone in need of a little extra description of who I am, I'm wearing a blue shirt this evening with some glasses and short blonde hair and a lower voice, you could say. I'll pass it over to my wonderful teammate, Melissa.
Hi, everyone. Yes, I'm sure you all know anybody who has the joy of knowing Chelsea. It is a big deal. We love working with her. And I am Melissa. I use she, her pronouns, and I coordinate our Boulder, Denver, and Colorado Springs local teams, which we'll talk a little bit more about how that works. I am normally based in Denver, but I am currently in Boulder, so would love to connect more about it. And I will pass it over to Bobby.
Hi, everybody. I'm Bobby Mooney. I use she, her pronouns, and I am located in Denver, and I have sort of shoulder length, brown blondish hair, glasses, and a black t-shirt that says 350 Colorado. And I work as the Beyond Oil and Gas campaign coordinator. So I'm excited to share some more about that in just a few moments. But for now, I will pass it on to Matt.
Thanks, Bobby. My name is Matt Gose. I use he, him pronouns. And I am the Promoting Climate Solutions Coordinator here at 350 Colorado, and I'll also be talking to you a little bit about that later. But yeah, some visual descriptors of myself. I'd say I have like short brown hair, wearing a blue shirt, and I'd say like a mid-pitched voice. And with that, I'll pass it to Sam.
Hi, I didn't realize I was going to be part of the intros. Hi, I'm Sam. I use she, her pronouns. I am a member of the Northern Colorado 350 team, and I'm on the leadership council up here, and I am excited to be here. Off to you, Barb.
Hey, I'm Barb Krupnik Goldman, or just Barb Goldman. I've been working with the Northern Colorado team for a couple of years now, and we've got some exciting things starting to happen this year. So, we'll be happy to talk about that. That's it.
Thanks so much, y'all. Appreciate you being a part of this with us. And for everyone else that is here too, please drop in the chat, yeah, your name, where you're at in the state, maybe how long you've been involved with 350. There's some familiar faces here, and I'm so glad you're here tonight, but there's a lot of new ones too, so we'd really just love to hear in the chat there as we go along. We will have a chance to chat directly here quite soon, so there will also be that, but don't want to skip over introductions from folks as well. Yay, Susie and Golden, wonderful. Okay. Well, to move us to just into some quick kind of group agreements, I know this is a lovely, wonderful group of people, but just some friendly reminders around how we're showing up to the call. Trying to be on mute unless you're talking and wanting to share. And there is a raise hand function that you can use down in your toolbar on Zoom, which is easy for us to find you and answer any questions you might have as we go along. But otherwise, this is a safe and respectful space for us to share ideas, be honest and vulnerable, and not have to over sugarcoat things, but to again be here for one another and here for ourselves in that way. And really, I think leaning into as well possibility over pessimism. Not that doing this type of work doesn't lead to its own challenges and low days, let's say, but we cannot give our despair the power of prophecy and make that despair into proof that everything's doomed, right? It's okay to feel that way and we go through it, but just to say that we want the tone tonight to acknowledge that and move us into also that hopeful space. So uncertainty means that there is space for something beautiful still to happen, and you all are a serious part of building something beautiful each and every day. So thank you again for that. Because having something to be working for, the love and responsibility of life, we have to just name our values really quickly before we get into that recap. We have to act in service of them. And for a lot of you, you may already know that 350 Colorado is focused on keeping fossil fuels in the ground, promoting just and real climate solutions and a real just-based transition, and having a powerful grassroots movement of people that make those things happen. So this is just kind of a rephrasing of those things, right? We're blocking fossil fuels and injustices, we're building real solutions and the resilient communities that it's going to take to see a clean energy transition. And we're embodying the change that we want to see and leading so that the leaders will follow. A lot of times it doesn't feel that way, but it does certainly work that way, and history shows that, and we'll talk about that too. So we can choose to act in these values even when we're not seeing the light of possibility, and how beautiful to still make those acts when you don't have all the information, that the love of life and preserving life for future generations to come is a part of that. So if that's something you identify with as well and you feel and it motivates you in this work, we see you, we celebrate you, we thank you. We're open to, really making this an inclusive movement that works towards these things. So with that, let's get into a recap here of the year. The challenge of tonight, among other things, is to find a way to succinctly talk about the many moving parts of the climate justice movement. And what you're going to hear from us is, our efforts towards going through and kind of taking out what we see as really important to share. But if we miss something, please let us know. Drop it in the chat. That'll help create a broader, more clear picture of, again, what has happened so far this year. But I will say too, before I pass it over to my teammate, Melissa, of course, like most movements towards justice and, you know, the future we want, there's the good, the bad, and the ugly. And, you know, escalation in our efforts across the globe to get lawmakers to pay attention and get corporations to pay attention is working. And the courage that people have to make that happen is becoming more and more common every day. So I just kind of wanted to name that as a tone and a theme going into this recap. And also to say that as a small offering and resource to you all, if you haven't came across this one yet, there's a really wonderful podcast that came out not too long ago called We Are the Great Turning by Joanna Macy. It's 10 episodes, 30 minutes, really short and sweet, but truly does so much to lift up and identify all the moving parts of this work and what we need to take care of ourselves and one another. So we'll share that resource with you and the link to it in a follow-up email, and hopefully you'll find some use in it as we go forward. And with that, I will pass it over to Melissa.
Amazing. So yes, as you had maybe seen in the agenda a little bit, but we're gonna talk quickly about some of the things going on globally in the climate movement, and then how we are using that to think globally but act locally. So we recognize that to change everything that we need to change, we need everybody. And so I'm going to ground you in some of this global context and remember that it's everybody's fight. And then we'll talk more about the local, as I said. So some really powerful, important news to share that has already happened in this first 6 months of the year is you can see here that the EU has agreed to upgrade its laws to combat environmental crime more effectively. So what does this look like? It means that this new legislation that the EU is using enables criminal prosecution for environmentally damaging conduct. So that could be a company, that could be an individual. It's overall expanding the list of environmental offenses. And as we know, there needs to be incentive and consequences, especially for these larger companies to be able to buy in and understand that we need to be working towards a more sustainable future. And this legislation is a huge step to begin working towards that. There's also, we have seen that the number of nature-based policies, announcements from governments all over the world has doubled just in the past year. That's a crazy statistic. And when a lot of people say, thinking of the global 7, like the top big 7 countries that are emitting the most, one of the top ones is China. And China, there is a lot of research that is starting to show that China's emissions may have peaked in 2023, meaning that the carbon emissions are now on a structural decline. The world in general, the population, we're investing almost twice as much in clean energy compared to fossil fuels. And that is an upward trend. So it's important to share these things, and wins are really important to talk about, because a lot of times the majority of climate news we know is it can be very pessimistic. And I want to share that and also remind ourselves of that as I also talk about another huge aspect of everything that has been going on in the global context is that there has been a severe amount of violent conflict in many different places. We see it in Gaza, Yemen, Syria, Ukraine, all over the world. And we recognize that violent conflict, that intensity that people are living in, really ruins the local capacity for people to be able to manage climate-driven risks. Yeah, Sudan, thank you, Tom. It's true, it's all over. It additionally creates an insurmountable carbon footprint. So as 350 Colorado continues to work in the local context, we ground our work in climate justice, thinking about how everybody has a human right to a healthy, safe space to live, work, and play. And that is not lost on the climate movement as a whole, and it's definitely not lost on us as an organization. But we now can move ourselves on to how do we take that global context into the local.
Thank you, Melissa. Yeah, shifting into the United States now. A lot has happened this year, and oh yeah, there's an election, right? Now we all know that, but it is worth naming it because that colors so much of what has happened and what is still going to happen this year. So let me just set my timer here so I don't run over. So from a leadership standpoint, super exciting. Just recently, a joint report came out from the House Committee on Oversight and Accountability that has really shown a light further on big oil's evolving efforts to avoid accountability for climate change. This is a very in-depth report, and we will be sharing it with y'all for those that are interested in going through it. But it is certainly worth noting that being able to bring more attention to something like that is going to help revoke the moral license that oil and gas is always working towards. And there's more youth leadership stepping up. Not that it is up to just the youth by any means to lead us into a clean energy future, but more court cases are being brought forth, specifically recently in Hawaii, which is a case involving 14 young people, and the trials actually started this month. So they're hoping to really see that concrete action steps are taken to reduce emissions and actually do more to improve the transportation department's plans for the state and not having more highways. And 350 Colorado continues to be a part of a national network with 350.org. So we are connected to a number of things that are happening as actions and ways to unite efforts from Colorado to the East Coast and in between. So just wanted to name that and remind folks that that is something we still do in addition to our statewide work. But in terms of some big events, much like what Melissa was just sharing, clean electricity is on the cusp of overtaking fossil fuels in the US. This just happened in March this year, where renewables and nuclear generated 49.4% of our electricity. And yeah, that would be one of the first time in generations that fossil fuels will provide less than half of the country's electricity. So by the end of this year, that could already have happened, and that's pretty exciting. But very exciting as well is that Vermont is helping pass, Vermont has helped pass a law that is going to set a new precedent, I think, for other states, maybe ours included. It's now going to require that the biggest oil and gas companies pay into a climate super fund that'll be used to pay for climate damages. So again, connecting the root cause of how the climate crisis has gotten to where it is, and then connecting that back to the reparations and the support that we need to build a resilient future is so necessary. So way to go, Vermont, and excited to see other states follow suit because it certainly could happen. And then something I'm personally really excited about, I'll say, is this last note about new studies around the gap between climate and people taking action for it. So this came out of, just in the last 2 months, a study from the Yale program on climate change communications, really comprehensive work that's been done to understand, the evolving climate crisis and our attitudes towards it. So basically, it shows here that majorities of our country here, people in it, think that global warming should be a high government priority and support various climate policies. But there is still a real discrepancy between those attitudes and the actions and the behaviors that are following through on it, right? So it's kind of like a good problem to have. People are almost there, but they still need to be moved into taking more sustained action. And I hope everyone can take their hands and pat themselves on the back for the ways that you all take sustained action every day, because you're not so much in this statistic, you're doing a lot. But the ways that we can really boost this forward will really be significant for movement building and the work we need to do to build a big movement. So with that, I'll pass it over to Matt to get us down to the last layer here, Colorado, to the local.
Yeah, thanks, Chelsea. So to talk a little bit about what's happening here, a bigger thing and a more timely thing that's going on right now is improving our air. And some work was done with that this year in the legislative session. A suite of 3 ozone bills were passed, one having to do with permitting, one to do with enforcement, and one to do with improvement. This is a good first step, but we are still suffering the consequences of these high ozone days. Just recently, in the past week alone, we have had 3 ozone days, including today. which is terrible because you can't go outside, you can't walk your dog, any of that kind of stuff. And yeah, Colorado natural gas flaring has been an issue and a contributor to a lot of the problems out here. And it's usually out of public view and hidden from us. The state that we're in, Colorado, is held up as like a model for reducing pollution from oil and gas sites because of its ban on routine flaring. But video evidence provided from Andrew Klooster and Earthworks shows that it is it's still being done at a high rate, and that there's a lot of challenges with that as natural gas flaring continues. And then also we've got some big moves on the other side here. Obviously, yeah, the ECMC public hearing on the Lowry Ranch cap, which I believe is supposed to be taking place in July. Suncor being sued, and yeah, just the overwhelming support of people that we've witnessed turning out to different events, specifically for SB 159, that was huge. But yeah, we've also got a kind of a cool little tidbit as well with SB 24218, which will increase the distribution of electric power and renewables, which is exciting. And with that, I will pass it over to some more challenges with Bobby.
Thank you, Matt. And thank you all for that great sort of telescoping in on recap from global to national to state. So now I've got the really fun job of laying in on some challenges, right? I'm going to dig into some of the tough stuff, the bad news. But I want you to know that good news is coming right after it. So hang in there, hang with me, and we'll get there. But we need to look at this crisis head on so that we can fully understand it and move with it and work on it. So let's talk about some of these challenges. Get into it. So global greenhouse gas emissions continue to rise. We know that. And with it, global average temperatures are increasing rapidly. The trend is still not yet going in the right direction. May 2024 was the hottest May on record, and it was the 12th consecutive month in a row to set a heat record. And you can see in that, that chart there, that red line at the top is that period 23 into 24, setting that record every month for 12 months in a row. So between February 23 and January 24, global temperatures were over 1.5 degrees Celsius above the 19th century benchmark. So that's higher than that critical threshold that world leaders set in the 2015 Paris Agreement. Now, that doesn't mean that we have permanently breached that limit, which is really something that's measured over decades. But this single year does send a clear warning that humanity, to all of us, right, that we are approaching that critical threshold even faster than previously expected. And part of why this is happening, right, the challenges that underline this temperature trend have to do with, first and foremost, the power of the fossil fuel industry, right? That industry influences how pretty much everything in our lives is made and is powered and is grown and packaged and transported and disposed of, right? Tremendously powerful and influential industry that has incredible political power as well. And with that, we see complacency of our government, right? Government is incentivized to sort of maintain the status quo, not rock the boat. Corporate money pays electeds essentially to do nothing, right? To allow the interests of short-term profits to prevail over meaningful climate action. We even had a really frustrating example of that happen this year in Colorado. In the 2024 Colorado state legislative session, towards the end, there was a deal or a truce announced, brokered by our governor between oil and gas industry companies and some environmental groups. Not 350 Colorado, though, by the way. So that deal was a sort of an agreement that for the next 3 years, every group or company a part of the deal will not be pushing forward new legislation or new ballot initiatives that address production of oil and gas in Colorado. So very disappointing. We don't have 3 years to wait, right? And I'll tell you, 350 Colorado is not going to sit around and wait 3 more years. We are moving forward with many of our partners and adapting to an ever-changing political landscape, right? And figuring out how we can all work together to make some real progress in the meantime. Another big challenge is that we don't yet have enough distributed leadership and organizing. We know that grassroots movements really best accelerate scaling through distributed impact and leadership, because decentralized organizations are more effective and more resilient because they can be more responsive to changing environment, to different community needs, and more flexible in trying out a diversity of strategies. So although this is rapidly evolving in the climate movement, I think we're leading the way in many ways, we're still a long way off from the types of distributed power structures that we really need to transform our world to truthfully tackle the climate crisis. A fourth challenge I want to mention is funding, right? This types of climate work is all funded by grants and donations. And 350 Colorado is so fortunate to have such incredible support, beautiful support from members like all of you. But even that support can be variable, right? It can go up and down. And regardless, we are always, always, always out-resourced, out-funded by the opposition that sometimes seems to feel like they have bottomless pockets when it comes to promoting and continuing extraction. And all of that, I think, really comes to the big picture. The way I think about the challenges of what we're up against is the extractive economy. And it's maybe even a little bigger than economy, right? I'm thinking about colonialism, capitalism, consumerism, and militarism, right? All of those things work together to create a global system that efficiently controls and consumes and oppresses people in the more than human world. And I'm sure some of you can relate when I say, like, once you start to see it, you can't unsee it, right? It's everywhere. It's a part of everything. And when you start to pull on that thread, you start to find out how deep and far back that thread runs in our culture, in our history, and even in our psyche, the psyche of those raised in today's dominant culture. It's pervasive. And it's a huge challenge because it's a lot to change, right? Sometimes it feels like we need to change everything to really advance real climate justice. So it's a lot, right? It's a lot of challenges. Those are some of the challenges we face. So that's some of the tough news, right? The bad news. Now let's shift. Let's hear a little bit of some of the good news.
Yeah. So talking about our strengths a little bit and some of the good news associated with that, I'd say, and I think a lot of us would agree here, that being hope and having hope are not only two different things, but they are also the most important asset that we probably have. Hope goes hand in hand with courage, and rather than having hope, it's more of a state of being. So when we talk about, being hope, it's about like that activity that's behind it. It's about, doing something to make a change, like being the change that you wish to see in the world. And I think that everybody that we come across out here, we're fighting this fight because we actually, we care. And it's not about money. It's not about anything like that. So yeah, doing something about it is huge strength right there. And what we're doing is we're organizing through grassroots organizing principles. And that is a secondary huge strength. A lot of these different events where, we're turning out people for, Climate Lobby Day, or, some people might remember we turned out a bunch of people back in last August, to fight the Uinta Basin Railway. That was all done, through word of mouth and chatting with our LCs, which you'll hear more about later, distributing the word, making connections with people, and really building it from the ground up, which is what grassroots organizing entails. So when people come together, and the moral story of all that is when we all come together and we activate, we can usually get things done. We can usually at least make a splash, and that has been shown in the past with a few different avenues, a few different areas. For example, the Aurora fracking fight, gaining 3,000-foot setbacks on fracking projects, which is the largest in the state. And yeah, just major divestments from fossil fuels in separate cities, divestment in, for example, the city of Aspen, from major fossil fuel funding banks such as Wells Fargo and Citibank. And yeah, like I mentioned earlier, the Uinta Basin Railway fight, which was awesome, but as Ron's shown, there's some weird stuff happening with that. But yeah, coming together and pushing legislation through, being out, talking to people, making those personal asks, having that hope and being hopeful, yeah, that is our biggest strength. And I will pass it over to Chelsea to talk a little bit more about more of our shared strengths.
Thank you, Matt. Yes, just to connect us back to where we started from when we talked about our shared vision and values, right? Our love and responsibility for this life and future lives to be lived on this planet that is clean and healthy and safe and based in equity. All of that really comes from our care for ourselves and one another and how we show up to what we think of as relational organizing. So trying not to do what is done around the extractive industry and the extractive economy, as Bobby shared about earlier, this being the other side of it, creating the living economy. And the more that we organize with one another in a relational way and caring about each other and finding real connection and reasons why it's worth doing this together, the more likely we are to keep building that living economy that actually has deep, real democracy, gives a lot of hoots about regeneration and reducing and reusing and cooperating, right? And finding a type of ecological well-being for ourselves being a part of nature and not separate from it, right? We have to really reset the kind of culture and the tone in that way. So as we work ourselves towards the living economy with those choices and building out more choices so that people can lead healthier lives, we'll really be that much closer to that greener future that we want. There's so many ways to go about doing it, and we know how challenging that can be. But before we get on to the real back half of the evening to talk about goals and roles, let's take some time to digest and discuss and get a feel for, what all we just covered. We're going to break into a couple groups here for about roughly 10 minutes, and then we'll come back and do a quick group share out before we move on. But we really just want to hear kind of what's coming up for you. I mean, I'm seeing some of it in the chat. I'm hearing hope. I'm seeing facts, and we just kind of want some space to hear more. And with what's coming up for you, is there anything that you're identifying or thinking of that would be helpful for you to feel more resourced in this organizing, in this community, in this most important task we've been deemed with as people to solve the climate crisis, right? No biggie. So what might help you feel more resourced in that? So we will drop these questions in the chat just as hopefully a reminder for folks. But let's get broken into some rooms here. It should work okay. 4. Okay. It should open up or like kind of send you into it. You should see a prompt show up about right here. You're seeing that? We will see you back in about 10 minutes. Anyone needs help being moved, I can also help, just let me know. And this is our room, the main room for everyone that's here. That sound right? Let me see if I can help here. Okay. So for those that are here with me in this room, Shirley, Susie, Sam, Ellen, what is coming up for y'all? And I can also pause recording to make sure we can have a normal conversation. Yeah, hi Shirley. Looks like you're on mute, but what's coming up for you? And so what you've heard so far?
Let's see, but I'm not. Is that sheriff's still supposed to be up?
The what was that? Oh, okay. So I can help here, Susie, Ellen, Sam. You can chat in this room or I can set you into another room. Ever feels helpful. You can hear me okay?
Yeah, hi Chelsea. This is Sam. I'm kind of running around right now and doing some things, which is why I'm not in a breakout room. But I can just say quickly that I've been interested in trying to find my place in the climate movement for a while, and I feel like I've been sort of unable to find my role and
mm-hmm.
what I can do actively to get involved. I went to Climate Lobby Day with you guys,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm looking for kind of some big picture things that I can do. Well, I mean, small picture too, but
Mm-hmm.
so that's kind of why I'm here to just sort of see how I can plug in.
Nice. So the next section that we'll get into and really talking about that, but you'll hear a couple things that spark your interest.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Yeah, and thank you for being at Climate Lobby Day, part of making this year an impactful year. Talk about that.
That was really cool. Yeah, the sort of end of year dealing that you mentioned with the governor was discouraging. Although I understand the oil and gas lobby had a bunch of ballot initiatives that they were threatening us with. So
Mhm.
yeah, obviously they are a big problem. But yeah, Climate Lobby Day was great. It was really, really inspiring and fun to be a part of.
Yeah, you helped make it that way. It does. It takes a total community. I'm very cool for that. Susie, if I know you as many wonderful things as you're leading and working on, you might be multitasking tonight too. But if there's anything coming up for you in this part, um, things that spoke to you so far, or frustrations, or anything at all, glad to chat through. I might duck into, well, let's see. Got just a couple minutes left here. I won't interrupt any conversation. Um,
Hey, Chelsea, sorry, I was multitasking with dinner,
yeah.
and I was actually trying to get my kids to listen in
Mm.
and figure out a place for them as well. Yeah, so uh, I after we had some pretty nice wins with our Jeffco Students and Parents for Climate Action coalition group with Mountain Mamas. I took on a new job. And so, yeah, so I'm just trying to find a balance right now with everything. Although the jobs with the Department of Energy and their bioenergy division over at NREL. So it's
Oh.
yeah, so I'm trying to, yeah, like I said, just find balance and, just thinking what, again, back to my kids, one's starting her sophomore year in college, and one will be
Oh,
in college next year. And I think just so I showed them the calendar for 350, and it's I was like, oh, and here's a calendar for the climate reality project, and here's a calendar for this. Look at the Denver students DPS for climate action. And I was showing them all these different places they could look, and I was like, oh, if there was a single calendar and the nights, the days that you were free, I want to do something tonight, and just see like everything in one place. Maybe that's an AI thing, but
good idea.
yeah. Yeah,
Hmm.
but I'm trying to figure it out, but I appreciate all of your efforts.
Oh, equally to you. That was just reminding me you saying that. Like that could have been something we called out that happened in Colorado so far this year. The work that y'all did, Mountain Mamas. We'll add that still to our like timeline, kind of that we try to create for ourselves in general, just to understand the year.
We actually got an award from the Board of Education for elevating sustainability in the Jeffco district, as well as from the city of Golden.
Wow, that is so cool.
That'll keep us
Congratulations.
moving. That'll keep us moving, but we need to, yeah, we're meeting tomorrow morning, so.
Nice. Timely too then. We're wrapping up this midpoint of the year somehow.
This is great, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. You know, it's been a busy year, and I only anticipate the back half of it to look about the same, if not maybe more intense, given it's an election year and kicking into strategic planning mindsets. For the last couple months, that takes up its own whole thing.
Yeah, it's amazing hearing all the bioenergies and renewable energy division that I'm
Right.
the DOE. It's here, like they're already doing contingency planning, around the election.
I see.
Language, like changing their language already around how their work boosts the economy and jobs instead of the usual climate verbiage, I guess. But it's interesting. So
That is really interesting. I'd love to know how that, is going to maybe play out more onto airwaves that we're hearing about or not hearing about, but it makes me relieved to know that groups are thinking about it, planning for the best and the worst. Okay. I think I'm going to give people time to get trickled back in here so we can do a little bit of a group report out and hear how folks are doing. Yeah, also just too, I'd love to connect some other time, Susie, and just hear more about your jobs. That fascinates me. I'm always trying to learn more about big cool labs like Enroll and other places, into Boulder, the energy lab there, figure out, what more can we do to support, learn, spread the word, you name it.
yeah, pretty interesting. Maybe I'll start collecting ideas. Like I said, I'm gathering things for my daughters, teenage, 17, 19-year-olds so they can do little bits and pieces over the summer. It's kind of what they're looking for here and there.
I love that.
Versus a bigger commitment, but like an internship, like they just want to do little bits and pieces.
Oh yeah, July and August are going to have a number of things, so hopefully there'll be some good crossovers, some good moments to make it work.
Excellent.
Okay, giving people the 1 minute warning here, officially. Oh, and then I see in the chat, Sam, how long have we been at or above 1.5 degrees? Probably need to look back at that slide, but it looked like it was saying, We hit 1.5 roughly at least around almost December, but definitely around January, maybe December. Oh, I don't know if you caught that. I think, and the question you dropped in the chat there about the temperature, I think we hit 1.5 roughly at the end of last year, like temporarily, but then really started to sail past it starting in January. That was interesting. Hello and welcome back.
Oh, but we were just getting on a big roll. We were 2 steps away from changing the whole entire world for the
Solving it. Okay, call over. Hurry. Go back. Well, no, maybe bring it right into this space. We got like roughly 5-ish minutes that I kind of just want to open it up before I start recording again too. Just like, yeah, what did you name? What did you see? What did you feel? You want to take us away, Ron, maybe? Are you about to solve the climate crisis?
I'm happy to let Jan go. She's a much more eloquent a speaker than I am.
Oh, well,
Yeah.
that's garbage. But I'll just say that when we got cut off, we were all nodding our heads that there was an initial climate education movement that coincided with Al Gore's movie An Inconvenient Truth to make sure that people knew that climate change was real and it was us and it is bad and we can and should do something about it. And everybody who still doesn't agree with that chooses not to, because it's kind of right in front of your face, and you have to be determined to deny now, because it's some sort of whatever. And so we were talking about how we think it's time for a second round of education, because the crisis is accelerating faster than the climate scientists expected, faster than the Paris Climate Accords indicated. And the window to make effective change before planetary change is irreversible is closing much more rapidly. So that's what we were talking about, and then we ran out of time.
Good stuff. I'm sorry to be cutting off too. What else? What else for folks is coming up? Or ways that you feel you need to be resourced potentially, you know?
Resourced.
Yeah, supported, resourced, uplifted. Maybe a couple other words to come up with.
Well, part of what we talked about in our group was the possibility of doing tabling events at various farmers markets and other things to get information in front of people and to get them to go after their legislators to inspire them to act. And something that I think I'd actually kicked around maybe Melissa and Matt when we were tabling down at Civic Center Park was to come up with a new game of sorts that would have a fossil fuel myth on one side of a card and ask people to determine whether it was true or false and have the truth on the other side of the card. I mean, the one that sticks out to me is Cred on their damn website has got this thing about, oh, we've cleaned up. Last year, we removed 60,000 tons of emissions from fossil fuel operations. Well, that sounds pretty impressive until you realize that the total emissions was like 161 million tons. So that's like 0.005%. It's nothing. So, and that's the stuff they're putting out on TV all the time. And that's the sort of stuff I think we've got to combat head on.
I love that. Myth busting, and in a fun way.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, what about you, Molly?
Our group was talking about heat pumps and transferring over to electrifying homes, and how it would be helpful if there was information on the 350 website about the rebates that are available to us and resources. And I'm just thinking of this now, maybe trusted, if you guys already have a list like this, trusted contractors that electrify homes or install solar panels. And then and if I'm just speaking for the group, I'm sorry, they can add on to this. The intergenerational activism was something that was inspiring and also made me feel resourced. Jane brought it up. But if we're talking about, I have ideas for us as well, but I can hold those to later if you want. I mean, I found this app yesterday where you raise money just by walking. It's the WeWord app. So if there was some sort of thing we could do with that, like go on a hike and then the money that's made from everybody walking could go towards 350, that might help resource you guys to do more work.
I definitely want to hear more about this, or if you come up with the name to drop in the chat, we're going to try to like pull a resource list of everything that folks come up with here, as well as other resources that we have. That's great.
Awesome.
Thanks, Molly. Yeah, and Bobby, maybe our last one here.
We have, with our group in Fort Collins, the ability to talk about home efficiency and electrification, and we're talking with the city about it some. My husband is leading that more than myself. If you'd like to say anything more about that, Ken, he has a ready presentation to give about it, about what you have to do to actually electrify.
Yeah, oil and gas is not going to solve our problems, obviously, but we will, or we can. And over 2/3 of our carbon production is coming from our homes and our transportation. So I have a presentation for electrification for homeowners, and I've got one just about ready for renters as well. And to looking for rebates, I would always suggest looking up Rewiring America. They actually have a planner's guide that one can go to look up how you can actually set up electrifying your home and where you may find the rebates. I don't know if you're in what areas everyone's in, but if you're in Larimer County, Colorado, there is the EPIC program from the city of Fort Collins. They also not only have rebates available, but they also have a group of contractors that are available who've been approved for solar work, for heat pumps, installing heat pumps, things like that. And then there's another website also, but it's a little bit hard to go through. I'd probably have to send it to someone, but you can actually put in your zip code anywhere in the United States, and it will draw down all of the rebates that are available to you in your location.
That would be wonderful if you could drop that in the chat. And with Matt here on our team for promoting solutions, renewable energy work, yeah, maybe connecting on that presentation, because that sounds really situated well within this and ways we can move that work forward.
Sure, I'll look up that website and we'll try and get it in the chat before you guys are done.
Thank you. So appreciate
Because the state of Colorado has so many more rebates that stack on top of the federal rebates, and in many cases doubling the amount of tax credits that you can get. My recommendation is always to go to goelectriccolorado.org. It's a nonprofit. Everybody donates their time, and they help you navigate everything from a free home energy audit to figure out what you can do to weatherize your home to how to install a heat pump and what kind of heat pump you need and how many, and all of that stuff. So goelectriccolorado.org is another great resource.
Thank you. I so appreciate that too, because those are the kind of resources we need. Okay, we got about 15 minutes left here. And our last section that really is hopefully tying in nicely to what is coming up here, and I'm hearing from folks.
I don't have any glasses. You do it.
And if you're able, yeah, there we go. Awesome. Okay. So with our last bit of time here, this last section of the agenda is what we talked about, our goals as a result of all these challenges in the landscape, and the roles in which you all can, plug in and activate and be a part of really further realizing this work. And the roles that we have are kind of going to be tagged with these color-coded categories here. Roles that really have to do with being relational, right? Really enjoying connecting with people. People like Ron Booth here, tabling extraordinaires. People that have background or interests in kind of more communications type work. And then leading into policy and campaign. So those are the three you'll primarily hear about tonight. We're not going to speak as much about fundraising, but we wanted still to name it that, of course, right, we're a nonprofit, we do fundraising to put on campaigns and pay wages. So that is still a way for people to be involved. We're just not going to get too deep into the weeds of that tonight. So to kick off hearing about some movement building opportunities, which really comes down to creating those critical connections with each other, whether that's at the statewide level or the local team level. So I'll kick us off here with some statewide information and opportunities before passing it over. Here on the statewide front, the long-term goal remains the same as it was at the beginning of this year. We really want to build a critical mass movement for climate and related environmental justice issues that centers our JEDI principles and prioritizes collaboration with coalition members and community partners. And in the short term, it's really a hyper-focus around expanding the leadership that's on the ground and creating a strong network of change makers. So if we can get 3.5% of the Colorado population really activated, throwing down, showing up in the streets and in the Capitol, we're over 50% likely to get what we want, which is a really handy statistic that came out of a study from Erica Chenoweth a number of years ago. But basically, just continuing the work to see that activists in this movement are grounded, taking care of themselves and one another, and really are interconnected too, and knowing each other and being able to support each other in this work that we do. So that really leads into these 4 roles right now that we are really trying to bolster to build that critical mass movement. We have this new, very exciting project that some of you have maybe heard a little bit about at this point called our ZIP Leader Project. And ZIP being an acronym for Zoning Interpersonal Power, but it also having to do with zip codes, and that we're really looking for people to be leading their zip code, ready to share opportunities with one another, maybe put on, type community events or be at events that are being put on in your community in order to grow and connect and really bring more people into the movement. And I'm always looking for help around people that are ready to just welcome new people that join. Shout out Shelby, who's here tonight and who's a huge help with this. And shout out Sadie as well, who's been a huge help with these 2 projects in movement building. But if you're interested in tabling and really being in those community events and meeting new people and helping have new people join, we're looking for folks to join the tabling and outreach crew. And that's something we love to do throughout the summer and really throw down on. But the last thing to call out here is around the Youth Action Committee. We have some wonderful new co-chairs that have been helping lead the way. Shout out Layla, who's here tonight, who's been in some of our YAC meetings. Really looking for more folks that have connections to be able to make into schools so that our Youth Action Committee can really do more work alongside the existing good work of groups like DPS Students for Climate Action and Jefferson County School, public school, doing such incredible work this year as well. Shout out Susie. So hard to keep it succinct, but lots of ways to be using your people skills and your extroversion and your passion to welcome new people, grow the movement, and really have enough people present to help throw down on the roles that we need. So that was the statewide spiel. We're going to get local now, and I will pass it over to Barb or Sam here to speak on the Northern Colorado local team front.
Sam, why don't you give it a start?
All right. Thanks, Barb. Thanks, Chelsea. Yeah, we're up here in Northern Colorado in Fort Collins, and we just won a $180,000 grant to start a educational project in air quality monitoring in Greeley. As a 350, we don't have a huge presence in Weld County, but Weld County is the highest cracked county in the state. We're really excited to have this grant and this project. And what we'll be doing is partnering with CSU, who's doing air quality monitoring at Villa Romero, and then doing education and community events around the data that they'll be collecting. And we need a lot of people, so please volunteer. There's a bunch of different roles for this grant, some in person and some remote, because I know that not all of you are up here. I'll just drop the roles that we have here in the chat if you want to check them out. And if you want to volunteer for this project, you can fill out this form. Really excited about that. We also just started a campaign for PRPA, the Platte River Power Authority. They're wanting to build $300 million of new gas power plants for our electricity up here, and our electric houses and heat pumps are only as good as the electricity that we're getting that power from, and so we want that to be renewable. PRPA is the worst at their clean energy goals, worse than Excel, and we're working with other groups up here to form a campaign to fight against that and stop the building of those plants ideally, but also to just raise awareness about PRPA in our communities. If you're interested in that, you could reach out to Sarah, our Northern Colorado organizer, or me or Barb, and I can put my email in the chat, but we're going to have an action on July 17th at their meeting. So if you're able to come up to Fort Collins and just make your presence known, that would be amazing. And PRPA serves not just Fort Collins, but Longmont, Loveland, and Estes Park as well. So yeah, and then Barb is working on our Divest CSU campaign. So Barb, if you want to throw out a little comment about that too, that would be great.
Sure. The Divest CSU campaign has been going on for almost 2 years now, and it actually, there have been campaigns that have come up and then died out, students graduate, etc. But we have been going solidly for a couple of years. We have a petition that has over 1,000 signatures, and we have had some meetings with the foundation board. Recently, we've been looking at how the investments have changed. The board at CSU told us they were doing great and they weren't interested in changing their investment strategy. But as we've watched what they've been doing, it looks like they are slowly divesting the foundation's investments from fossil fuels. So maybe we are having an impact. And this fall, as students come back, we're really gonna gear up again and apply a little more, I could say pressure or incentive for them to continue divestment. So, and then in addition, I'll just throw out that the Northern Colorado group and the Boulder group are doing a climate leadership workshop this coming Saturday. And if you're interested, I'm sure there's still an opportunity to sign up to go to that. Thanks.
You are so right. There so is. We will drop that in the chat. And I'd love to see you in Longmont. Pass it over to Melissa.
Amazing. And yes, so like I said, I get to coordinate Denver, Boulder, and the Springs. So I'm kind of, especially because we're a little tight on time, I'm just going to talk about these things in collaboration. But if you are based in the Denver area, more local to the city center, then there's a couple of things that are big. We focus a lot on climate legislation. We focus on building people power. And especially as we know, as we said right away, it is an election year. And so we're really looking to make sure that we're increasing the general knowledge of what is happening in the climate movement in Colorado. So it's on the forefront of people's brains as they are voting for the entire United States, the big one. We additionally focus that we have a Suncor Action Committee. A lot of you all probably know what Suncor is, but it is a huge oil refinery that is based in Commerce City, Greater Commerce City. And it is an EPA Superfund site that then creates, it is one of the many reasons why that zip code is the most polluted zip code in the entire United States. And we care a lot about the health of the residents there and also the well-being. So that is a great way to get involved. And you can also see here on the screen some of the roles that we're looking for, especially with event coordination, if you feel like that is a strength that you have. Also social media, that's a really easy lift. If you have 10 minutes a week to just repost some things, that's great. And yeah, I would go on to the next one. We have Boulder County, if you're more focused by the Flatirons, in Boulder. We, with the Boulder, are focusing similarly as the statewide campaign, a lot of things with keeping fossil fuels in the ground, focusing on phasing out fracking, but also have a huge pillar of education and just making sure that people in Boulder County know what's going on. So that's why we are additionally looking at tabling leads, kind of how Ron was saying, like that's so helpful to get the word out. And we have a monthly team meeting that anybody and everybody can come to. It's public, that happens in Boulder, where you can hear about what's going on. So there's always support and also just engagement that is looked at in that, which is similar to the Springs, which you might see. There we go. Colorado Springs. This is yeah, it's so beautiful, and they have a great, there's a lot of movement that's starting to be built there. And we're really focused. So many people in the Springs are really care about the environment, care about the natural resources, but don't always realize that those resources are at threat because of what we are doing with fossil fuels. And so that theme of basic education is still continuing to come up. And some of the similar roles, just making sure that we're increasing capacity and making sure that more people are aware of what's going on and that they feel empowered to do so. But I will put my email in the chat and you can reach out with more questions.
Thank you. And I'll round us out with the Roaring Fork team here, speaking for Steve, the team coordinator tonight. Very similar to what we've heard. Folks that are ready to go out into the community in those events and connect with people and grow the local team and people being a part of it. A little bit of data entry, if that's something that you're interested in. We have training to help make that easy. But really connecting with more organizations and groups and businesses in the Valley in order to create a more interconnected network. So those are more of the short-term goals, getting into the long-term. But yeah, even if you're not based in the Roaring Fork Valley, there are still ways to be a part of it remotely. So please let me know, and I'm very happy to get you connected to that team. So with that, we'll round out with the campaign goals and roles here, and that'll bring us to the end. So
Thank you, Chelsea.
Yeah.
Yeah, so in addition to these local teams working in a place-based way, we also have campaigns that work in a issue-based way. And you can see the three general campaign areas there. I'm going to start us off talking about keeping fossil fuels in the ground. So in this campaign, our long-term goals are phasing out fossil fuel permitting in Colorado by 2030 with a fair transition for workers and communities that currently rely on that industry. And we want to shift public opinion about the role and the detrimental impacts of oil and gas in Colorado. And we do that by focusing on our short-term goal of powerful coalitions to keep fossil fuels in the ground that center frontline communities and community members. So that's what we're doing in this campaign. And I always say it loud, say it proud, keep fossil fuels in the ground. That's what we got to do. We got to phase out fracking in Colorado by 2030. And some roles in this area include a couple ideas that I wanted to talk about tonight is helping with watchdogging. This is really important, keeping an eye on state and local government, the regulators, letting them know we're watching, identifying public action opportunities like submitting comments, attending hearings, and meeting with decision makers. So if you're interested in that or any of these, please reach out to me. And another one I'll mention is helping out with comms and media. We have a little team that's focused on telling the story of the fracking fight in Aurora that's going on right now. And so this is a place where anybody with some comms or social media experience or interest can plug in. And then finally, I want to mention the fracking phase out volunteer welcome wagon. We're kind of launching this welcome wagon idea. We need some people. So if you're a people person, this would be a great place to help out with welcoming new volunteers into the movement to phase out fracking by 2030. We need to connect people to roles and tasks, and that takes a little bit of magic. And so if you're someone who likes to connect people in that way, we'd love to have your help in this role. That's it for me. Please reach out with any interest or questions about that.
Awesome. Thanks, Bobby. Yeah, I'm gonna fly through this because we are crunched for time. So yeah, talking a little bit about the climate policy meetings in coalition. These are monthly, or sorry, they meet twice a month and usually are run by our climate policy analyst Heidi Leafwood, who will be back starting in July, which is going to be awesome. But really quickly, the short-term goal of the Climate Policy Coalition here is to work in coalition to advance common policy goals, rules, and laws, with the obvious long-term getting strong rules passed into our laws and into action. Passed our laws into action, sorry. And it's where the rubber meets the road, and there's a lot of opportunities and roles here that we can click over to really fast, such as public commenters, both written at Zoom meetings or in person, helping track events, sort of like what Bobby was saying earlier with watchdogging, and then yeah, gathering resources to help counter misinformation, because we are usually outnumbered, like we mentioned earlier as well, and then yeah, other written pieces such as LTEs and opinion pieces, op-eds. And with that, I will move quickly over to the Promoting Climate Solutions, which is more so what I deal with. And yeah, we in the short term, we have a global week of action through the Stop the Money Pipeline people over there. And that is going to be the Summer of Heat that we've got going on. It's very fitting, right? That's going to be going from, it's already started earlier in June out in New York City, where they're having the major protests and calls to action. But out here, we're going to have a satellite event, and look out for that in early August. But in the long term, looking to secure and support and amplify pro-climate and ecological policies in legislature, regulatory agencies, and other governmental bodies. Really trying to uplift positive things that are happening as well. And that is, yeah, through divestment with our defunding climate disaster calls, through legislative action, through our legislative action committee calls, and through regen ag and renewable energy, which are promoting climate solutions calls. So if you want to click to the next slide real quick, we've got some roles, such as co-chairs, bill trackers, watchdoggers, the whole nine. So if any of those interest you, feel free to reach out to me, and I will also drop my email in chat here. But yeah, with that, thanks for letting me steal an extra 2 minutes of your time, and I will pass it back to the group poll.
Thank you. Yes, echoing Matt, just appreciating these extra 2 minutes that we have here with you to wrap up. As we wrap up, we'd love to hear in the chat, what strengths do you see as bringing to the movement? What magic do you help create? And I already know from some of you the magic you do help create, which is more connection, more fun, more possibility. So Love to hear in the chat from people as we round out here and go forward. And hopefully we are connecting with you. If we haven't already individually, you will see an email from us tomorrow with resources and these slides and can go through. But going forward, maybe with some new eyes and seeing things in a way maybe you didn't before, or finding some new renewed energy towards this work. The action dashboard on our website at 350colorado.org is pretty kept up to date with in-person events and online opportunities. So that's a good place to check in on, in addition to our calendar. And following us on social media, so those 2 QR codes. If you're not already keeping track of us on Instagram and Facebook, that would be wonderful as a way to stay up to date on what's happening. And hopefully you find ways to connect with others here too, right? There could be neighbors here for all you know, people in your own zip code in your community. And the more that we can connect with each other, the better. So we've shared our contact information here and there, but here it is all summarized for you, all the teammates, some of which weren't here tonight. So again, if you need anything to get started and find a way to really plug in, or you're feeling like you still need some support, yeah, let's connect, let's talk, let's make it happen. My job is to help you be the best climate activist you can be, and that's different for all of us, isn't it? But again, we show up with our shared passions and strengths, and we really do good work together. So, let's stop the recording.